Hi, and welcome back. This is season 3. Very exciting. We've got 2 seasons in of the State of Healthcare podcast. This season, we're actually delving into what I consider the conditions nobody talks about. So if you haven't heard a lot of we never really researched or studied the female body, yes, we are definitely delving into that. That is a hot topic. Women's healthcare has been pushed aside for far, far too long. But we're not just going to touch on that. We haven't forgotten about the men in the world either. But we're going to be hitting topics that people like to steer away from. And I'm excited to hear that there's actually a lot more going on in these areas. But knowledge is power. So again, like in everything that we talk about, you need to fight for your healthcare. Knowledge is power. So you're going to hear about conditions and maybe things that you might have had symptoms on and you've been afraid to ask about. So that's what we're going to be exploring. So welcome to season 3. Yes, we have not really studied the female body, but we're going to be hearing about a bunch of things. So come along with us on this journey. Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of season 3. I can't believe we're flying through. It's very exciting. I'm back here again with Julie. I bother her on things because she knows many things, and I like to tap into all of her experience. So because we're dealing with a lot of like women's health stuff, and we tapped into it a little bit in one of the episodes with one of the PTs about women for basically pregnancy. So pregnancy is a big thing. Obviously, there's a bunch of other things that we're going to explore topics, but Julie does a lot of work from the yoga side of it and like pre and postnatal. So I was going to let you talk about your experience and just kind of go from there on like that journey for women, because it is a big part of what we do.
Yep.
And as women, it is very tied into, and again, not touching into all of the issues of Roe v. Wade and all the other stuff. But again, this is a big portion for women that sometimes is addressed on the like, here you have a baby, but not always the stuff for the mom afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I did begin my career as a labor and delivery nurse. So I came at this initially from the nursing side. I worked in labor and delivery for probably the better part of 8 years. I've probably seen about 1,000 deliveries, maybe 1,200. I'm not really sure. I didn't keep track, but I've seen quite a few. I worked in higher acuity hospitals, so I not only saw like a delivery of a single baby who was term and everything was going well. I also saw quadruplets and triplets and all sorts of situations, babies coming really early. When I became a yoga instructor, I was tapped by the people that trained me to teach prenatal yoga because that was my area of expertise. So I often joke when I'm on an airplane and they're like, is there a nurse or doctor on board? I'm always like, please be pregnant, because that's what I'm the most comfortable with.
Right.
But of course, they're never pregnant. It's always somebody having a heart attack and a dude. And so, but that is the nature of the world. I began teaching prenatal yoga just about 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Actually, July 8th, I just had my 7-year anniversary of the first time I taught a yoga class, and it was teaching the moms who were pregnant.
Right.
So I did that very consistently up until the pandemic. And the pandemic, everything kind of changed. And I also did some postnatal, some mommy and me at that point in time. And now I'm working in an aerial studio. These are the only public classes I teach. And I've done some prenatal aerial training,
Right.
just so that the teachers can be comfortable if someone comes in your class that's pregnant. Yeah, because it's definitely safe to do yoga when you're pregnant. We do want to make some adjustments, but you can absolutely practice until either your body tells you, no, it's, I'm no longer good with this, or till you deliver.
What are the precautions, basically? Or you said, there's some adjustments. So what kind of adjustments do you make for pregnant women?
So in a pregnant woman, we don't want to compress the abdomen. So if I'm twisting, I'm going to twist what I think of as open versus twisting and closing that space over my abdomen. That's a little hard to demonstrate if I'm not standing up and doing something. But for instance, if I was in a lunge with my right foot forward, I'd want to twist to the left, as opposed to if I twist towards that right leg that's extended, I'm kind of squishing things. So we always want to do open twists. We also don't do deep twist. Deep twist can feel really good for those of us that are not pregnant, but you don't want to do that deep twisting movement. You can still twist, you're just keeping it gentle.
Okay.
In pregnancy, we can tend to see blood pressure dropping. That's very normal for blood pressure to be lower. And so moms can get dizzy. So we're going to take a little more time. If I'm doing a class that is moving fast to get everyone's heart rate up, that's not going to be necessarily the best thing for someone who's pregnant. I wouldn't be saying like the sun salutations where we're going up, down, up, down, up, down.
Okay.
That's going to be a little more challenging for someone. Also, it is really giving mom permission. What is it that feels right for you and your body at this moment?
Okay.
And pregnancy, you're going to feel one way your first trimester, a different way your second. That's usually kind of the sweet spot. And your third trimester, again, you may feel like I could do all those things in the second trimester. Now I cannot.
Okay.
Yep. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
looking at, we're going to keep that baby safe. We're going to keep that mommy safe, but also what works for you.
Okay.
And I do want to throw out the caveat that you may have someone come into your class who is a very strong athlete. They have a strong practice. And with them, I do feel like, okay, you know, if you
Right.
want to do a
Do
really
you?
challenging class, they've already built themselves up to that. It's not
Right.
something you want to think about starting when you're pregnant, but they can definitely
Work with
do
that.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
What about postpartum? So when you have someone who's had a baby coming
Yes.
in, what kind of modifications do you make there?
Yeah. So postpartum, I like to remind moms that it's going to take about a year to get your core back to where it was. It takes 9 months to grow a baby, so we don't want to expect that 2 weeks after you deliver a baby, suddenly you're right back to where you were. So we have to have some patience with
Right.
that. Just a little sidebar. We don't take as much time maybe to rest as can be appropriate. We live in a culture that really is like go, go, go.
Right.
So if you want to, and if you can, and you can stay home for what I would say is the fourth trimester, do it. You know, if you have 40 days where you can be at home and relax and have people come to you and help you, do it. Other things we're going to watch, you may have, we talked about the core, you may have your abdomen muscles, your diastasis, your rectus abdominis open, and we call this diastasis. Why am I blanking on the?
No, I know what
Yeah,
you mean.
where it comes apart.
Right.
Sorry.
We both blanked, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it is the diastasis
Yeah, the
recti, where
right. The
basically
rectus
opens up.
abdominis opens. Yes. And so then we're working to knit those muscles back together. And in my opinion, Pilates, I'm a yoga instructor. Pilates is super challenging for me, but the Pilates exercises for your core help more, I believe, than things like crunches because it's going to start to build that deep core back together first.
Right.
So we want to do that. And again, we want to be patient and we want to give ourselves time and not say, I had an amazingly strong core 9 months ago and it's going to come right back. Give yourself some time, rest, and enjoy the journey of being postpartum. So I think mostly we're looking at the core. I would make sure that someone is cleared to come back and exercise. If you've had a cesarean, it's closer to 8 weeks. A vaginal delivery is somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks. Some people really want to come back. So then how are we accommodating that? Maybe they're coming to a restorative class, something that is gentler. I think some people also just need to be in a space where they can rest. So maybe they're coming to your class and they're just laying on the mat and resting.
Or they're just looking for human interaction.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Not a baby. Nothing personal.
Exactly.
So
we want to, we want to accommodate that and again, be patient and loving and definitely meeting people where they're at.
Cesarean precautions versus vaginal birth.
So cesarean is major abdominal surgery. And then within 2 to 3 days of having a major abdominal surgery, we send you home with a baby that's basically a total care patient that you need to bathe, feed, clothe, toilet. You need to do all the things. And it's kind of fascinating to me because I think there is no other major abdominal surgery where someone would be like, and now take care of this baby, you know,
Right.
it's
There's a patient, like, or you get your own patient,
Right.
and you know what? You're recovering from surgery
Yes.
yourself. But good
Yeah.
luck, because this is what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. Good luck. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's going to take a little bit longer
Uh-huh.
to come back. And again, we're going to be cautious and aware of how that abdomen is healing.
Mhm.
My youngest daughter has had 3 cesareans. Her youngest he'll be 3 in October. And she said sometimes she can still feel the scars. Scars take a long time to heal. And of course, she had 3, she had
Right. And it just
one
had
after the
trauma
next,
to
after the
same
next.
area.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be very aware of how do we rebuild that core? We're rebuilding a core on anyone, regardless of what they've had. But this is someone who truly has had a major surgery.
Uh-huh.
We've gone through all the layers to get to that baby. And I don't want to say anything bad about a cesarean. It's a cesarean birth, and cesareans save lives. If we didn't have cesareans and you're
Lose a
having
lot of
to,
babies and moms.
yeah, you can have, and we talked a little bit about pelvic floor. That's not my area of expertise,
Uh-huh.
but if you have a baby that can't get out and is just
Uh-huh.
pounding into that pelvic floor for days
Uh-huh.
because you can't do a cesarean, that's a problem
Right.
for
And then there's
everybody.
more trauma.
Yes, there's a lot of trauma.
Uh-huh.
So we're looking at mainly rebuilding the core, I think is what I want to be the most focused on.
Mhm.
And same kind of thing, we talked about twisting gently. I would certainly not feel like, let's go ahead and do high impact because you've had major surgery.
Right.
So think of any time you have major surgery, what they tell you.
Mhm.
Don't lift anything heavier than your baby.
Uh-huh.
So if you're a weightlifter, you've got to figure out, am I lifting 5-pound weights or something
Right.
smaller?
Mhm.
Working on balance, finding that balance and stability again,
Uh-huh.
finding your mobility because your body will have changed
Yes,
from
that's
giving
what I was
birth.
just thinking. You now
Yeah.
have this new body to operate in.
Yes.
That you've had
Yeah.
a whole changing body for a year,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah. And then it is going to be different again. So first you're not pregnant, and then you have this baby that grows inside you, and that can sway your back, that can round, you can wind up kyphotic and lordotic with that. And then after you deliver, your back may hurt because a baby came through your birth canal and pushed on your spine. And now if you're breastfeeding, you may be much more heavy on top. So you just have to keep adjusting to, I have this new body, how am I finding my way to remain stable, to remain upright? We carry babies, not newborns. Newborns we're carrying close, but eventually you're carrying toddlers on the hip, and you've got that baby hip that you stick out. And I say I've had that going since I had siblings. Like my whole life
there you
I've
go.
carried a baby on that, and it's the same hip, it's the same side that we pop it out. And so you are going to find yourself adjusting and accommodating. So when you're in class, let's look at how are we realigning ourselves to come back to center, if you will.
It's interesting. So two things. One, I actually just had a patient where she couldn't understand why she was having back issues. And then we realized she's a toddler.
Yes.
And it's the side that she puts the toddler on.
Yes.
So we were like, I was like ergonomics. And then I'm like, wait a minute, and again, that is also a baby can get heavy too, though.
Yes.
So even with that, and you're doing these things and all this stuff. I also saw something where they were talking about, I have another PT that I follow who is going through pregnancy. And there's a lot of OBGYNs who don't want to give exercise prescription because they don't want to get sued if something happens. So they were saying, like, go to someone who's certified in this, or go to like a PT, or go to someone that has these, because they were giving the very conservative measures, and you've got these women who want to kind of push it a little bit or have a weight training background. And so I think it was kind of interesting because she's like, they don't want to say these things because they don't want to be the one responsible for it.
Sure. As a nurse, I'm still licensed as a nurse. I'm actually still insured as a nurse because of that prenatal component.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's smart.
Yeah, because that is area where you
Mhm.
can get sued for
Right.
sure. Yeah, based on nurses less typically because we don't have deep pockets.
Okay.
Physicians have deep pockets.
Right.
Yeah,
And they'll go there.
yeah,
Not to bring that side into it, but I also think that I appreciate that thing, like find someone who's certified in this area or find like a PT,
yes.
that specializes in this area, works with it so that they are able to actually give you that exercise prescription and honor each patient as they come, right? But then, sorry, go ahead.
No, and there are definitely
Mhm.
people who like prenatal is very comfortable for me. I understand that.
Mhm.
And there are other prenatal teachers. I shared one with you at the beginning of
Right.
this, that's in for text, not in this notes. But people that are doing this for a living, so are very comfortable and do understand when you come and you're like, hey, I have this, that, and the other going on. And I really can't stress enough that if you are a physically active person and you're pregnant, there's no reason why you can't keep doing that. Now, if your favorite thing to do is hot yoga, then you might want to think about, do I do something different? Because that is going to increase your core temperature and that's contraindicated in pregnancy. But if someone, a friend of mine was like an Olympic level weightlifter and she had two children and it did change her practice, but she didn't stop lifting just because she was pregnant. I wouldn't say to someone, let's start lifting. Let's see if I can get you to deadlift 400 pounds when you're pregnant. It's crazy if you're not doing that already. Your body will naturally, there will be a point where you're just like, this is too much for me to do. So, and I do think if you are moving your body and using your body, whether it's weightlifting or running or yoga, you have a relationship with your body where you are going to realize, like, I have to stop doing that now. If you're not moving your body at all, and that's okay, and you start coming to yoga, we're going to keep it gentle because we don't want to have you trying things that you've not done before when you really were just in the house and maybe not being physically active. You can safely do yoga, but I wouldn't say like, let's do power yoga or let's try aerial for the first time.
Right.
We're just gonna do some yoga, do basic yoga, slow it down, keep it nice, make it accessible for people.
Well, and I like that basically honor your body. So listen to your body.
Yes.
So I think sometimes we're always like, what, I should be able to do this. And that was a little bit with this other therapist. She was a very big into CrossFit, right? And so she was noticing like the changes or why can't I do this or, this and that. So she was saying that. So don't get discouraged if you go and someone's like giving you like seek someone that's an expert in the area that will help you honor your body.
Yes. Yeah.
So I feel like is kind of the message, like find someone and also there's, even if you haven't been physically active, you can find some gentle ways to kind of help you
Absolutely.
do
Yes.
things. So
Yeah. Something like 65% of your prenatal yoga students have never done yoga and they come in the second trimester.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a very high percentage of people who are like, I've never done yoga in my life. I'm about halfway through my pregnancy and the doctor told me to come.
Oh, interesting.
So we'll get that, like you should go do some yoga. We also get your baby is breech, go to prenatal yoga and they'll show you how to flip the baby. Now there's no big trick to flipping a baby. A physician could explain that as easily as I can. But again, I think from the standpoint of if something happens, they're maybe not wanting to take on that liability.
Okay, so they're like, go to yoga, they've got you. Well, two things. One, why? So I guess a lot of physicians are sending people over because I was like, that's kind of interesting that partway, and they're like, I should start yoga. So
yeah.
And then also, are there some tips for flipping a baby, or is that like go to yoga and you'll and understand that then?
So when a baby is breech, and I do want to say some babies are just breech, some babies, one of the things I talk to moms about when they're pregnant and we're in our resting shape at the end is that this is also your baby's birth. So it's not like I have complete control of when I'm birthing a baby that it's going to go the way I want it to. I shared a little bit with you. Today is my son's birthday. He'll be 38.
Right.
And I was in labor with him for about 24 hours and he weighed 10 pounds, 13 ounces. He was huge. And I did get him out, but I would not have said, I'd like to be in labor for 24 hours and birth a toddler. That was not my vision, but it was his vision. And
Right.
so you've got two of you working on this.
Right.
So just to keep that in mind, that for whatever reason, your baby might be like, nope, I am presenting breech and we're just going to figure this out together. What we do is work to get our hips higher than our heart.
Okay.
So we're sitting in an aerial studio. One of my friends, who is a yoga instructor, did have a baby that was breech, and she hung upside down in her silk.
Okay.
Safe to do. Second
Uh-huh.
trimester, no problem. By her third trimester, she said it was uncomfortable and she couldn't do it.
Okay.
But you would not typically say to someone, let's have you hang upside
Upside
down
down.
in a silk.
We got this.
Right.
Okay.
But you could lay on the floor and put
Mhm.
your legs on a couch or a chair, and you can even put a cushion underneath your hips to lift your hips a little bit higher. You want to do this when it is time where the baby is most active.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you could Google, how do I flip a breech baby by myself on YouTube, and it probably comes up.
Okay.
So it's not a big tricky
Uh-huh.
thing. And the baby may flip and then flip back and
Uh-huh.
flip and flip back. I feel like I had a pretty good flip rate,
Uh-huh.
but they didn't always stay flipped.
Okay.
So, and this is something you're telling the mom or the person who's pregnant how to do this, so
Uh-huh.
they can do this on their own. It's not something I'm working with them to
In the
do.
class to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Mhm.
they would work on it.
Yeah.
And then I like that actually. That's well, because I feel like pregnancy feels like so much work on the mom. And and you forget that the baby's involved.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they are starting to also show their own
Yes.
personality,
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
in the birth.
They have, absolutely, even in the
Uh-huh.
pregnancy.
Uh-huh.
So I am a vegetarian. I have been almost my entire life. My family is not, but that was my path.
Uh-huh.
And when I was pregnant with my son, I was working at a place that served hamburgers.
Oh.
And I was 6 months pregnant, and I remember, like, he wanted me to eat a hamburger. I kid you not. I didn't do it, but I remember just thinking, like, I should eat this hamburger. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, he's not a vegetarian,
Uh-huh.
but he had to gestate in a body that
That
was
was.
vegetarian.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And clearly he was well nourished because
Mhm.
he grew to a
He
very
was,
big size.
yes.
And yes.
So he wasn't starving. He was fine.
No, he was fine. Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, they have their own personality. And before you have a child and you think, oh, when I have this child, it will be like this. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Just like if you and I decided we were going to live in a house together, I can't be like, well, it's going to be like this. I know exactly how it's going to be. No, I don't, because I'm not you. I'm not. That's two people who are coming together, being in this space. And a baby is a person who has
Yes.
their own ideas about how things are going to go. And then they
Right.
become a toddler who has their own ideas. And
Right.
so it is, even from that birth, they
Uh-huh.
have their own ideas about, well, how should this birth go? How do I want to arrive in the world?
I think we don't often, well, I mean, again, all of the issues of abortions and when you have consciousness and things like that aside, I think we forget. Like, I think there's a lot on the woman. Like, why weren't things this way?
Yes.
You're like, the baby
Yes.
chose ma,
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. And yeah, and sometimes we do just have to say, okay, that is how this baby chose to enter the world, and honor
Right.
that this is their birth.
Mhm.
You're giving birth and they are being born.
Right.
So you both are going through this amazing transformational experience, and you both have an idea of how it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
So we can't say the baby's not a lump of clay that's just like, oh, okay, you want that? Okay, fine.
Uh-huh.
They're like, no, I'm going to grow. Like in my son's case, I'm going to grow to this enormous size, and I'm going to take a really long time to come out.
You're like, well, and I think we also talked about your pregnancy, or we were talking about just medical conditions in general. You have the baby, and then people are like, good luck.
Totally. Oh,
Right.
yes, yes. So my son was born in 1986, and he was huge, and I was young, and I had a nurse tell me, you can't breastfeed this baby. He's too big. You'll have to supplement. And I was young. So now I would have just said, no, I am going to breastfeed. But back then I was just like, in my head, I thought, well, I don't really have any money to buy formula, so I'm going to have to breastfeed him. And I did. It was fine. Like, I was confident with that. I'm an old hippie, and so that culture is very much like, breastfeed your kid, you'll get through it. But nobody told me. I tell women now that have these huge kids, I breastfed, I'm kidding you not, when I was sleeping, when I was grocery shopping, when I was cooking. Like it took 3 months to make a supply big enough for that kid, but he nursed all the time. And nobody told me that. No one was like, you're gonna have to breastfeed all the time to get enough milk for this kid because he's huge.
They just told you can't do it.
Yeah, they're just like, you can't do that. And so I had a vaginal delivery. He was very big, so I had a big repair. And nobody referred you to a pelvic PT back then. They were just like, enjoy your life. Good luck.
Oh God, yeah.
And so on I went, and I had a truck at that point with a heavy duty clutch, and I probably drove within a week, just went to the grocery store, like hauled water and stuff, all this crazy stuff. And nobody really was like, you should go home and rest. You shouldn't do these things. I wound up with a fistula that healed on its own. That can happen. And again, it was just kind of like, and even when those things would happen, they're like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't drive your truck yet. Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe you could have told me that.
Right. You're like, well, and that's what I feel like for a lot of, because again, the podcast, the idea is fighting for your healthcare, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of things we just were like, good luck. And you're like, okay, I'll figure it out. Right. So that's why I'm saying seek out pelvic floor therapy, right? When you're done, don't just accept that this is how your body has to be.
And even if you were like my age, I'm 60, I'll be 62 this year, and you had a delivery like I did, my pelvic floor is okay. That's just the grace of God. I have great genetics, I guess. But even if you had a delivery like mine 38 years ago, and you've had pelvic floor trouble, you can still go see a PT, a pelvic floor PT now. There's no reason why you have to say, well, it happened and I didn't get it then. You can still go.
Right.
Like we can still go in and say, hey, I've had this issue my whole life. I didn't know there were pelvic PTs. Like, what can I do?
And I think that's important because I think for women of all ages, right?
Yeah.
We just sometimes get to a point where we're like, I guess I have to live with this. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't have to live with this.
Yeah. My friend I was talking about that was a weightlifter, she talks about if you have loss of urine when you're moving, and she said you can work on that. Like there's things, because we just say to people, oh well, you had children and now when you sneeze you're going to pee yourself a little bit,
or you're at home trying to do a Kegel and figure it out on your own.
Yeah, so you definitely seek someone who can help you with this. No matter how distant the issue is that created this, you still can go in and get help and get assistance and improve your quality of life.
Right. And again, if you aren't getting instructions from your doctor or whatever, if you get the kid and you go, it's okay to seek out like resources.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
And I do think back in the day, it was just a different world where, I had a number of things happen to me in my life where they were like, and now you've done this and good luck.
Right. And you're like, oh,
and off we went. Well, and I didn't even think anything of it because nobody was getting assistance. We were just like, okay,
and you just figured it
I'll just
out.
see how it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I was actually just talking to someone about how pelvic therapy actually has been growing a lot, because I remember before when I'd have patients and I'd want to refer them, I would just find a few, but now I feel like there's so much more out there. So there are a lot more things, I think, maybe recognizing that people have been suffering with things silently.
Yeah.
And so now it's coming into,
Right. And you have a great resource. You are a great resource for pelvic floor PT because you definitely know folks, you're in that field. So you know folks, if someone's listening to this and thinking, oh,
where do I go?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're listening to this, then message me and I can connect you with some of the people that I either interviewed from here or some of these amazing therapists that I know. I also wanted to circle back. I appreciate that you said, like when you talked about core, that you mentioned not just doing sit-ups, because just in general for PT, everyone automatically thinks they need to just do sit-ups for core. And the problem is they are missing that in like bottom base layer.
Yes.
And that is what saves you so much. And I feel like that's how women end up creating more of those like separation of that.
Yeah. Diastasis recti.
Yes.
We both, I was
running
through it and I was like, wait, it's diastasis recti.
So if you have that muscle in the front where your rectus abdominis is and it's separated, sit-ups are not your friend.
Yeah. And you can feel it. You can take your finger and push right into that. So even if, I got a little bit of fluff over my muscles, but when I push, I can feel those muscles. I can't just push my hand in. You'll know if that separates. And if you're not sure, again, seek a professional. Like, hey, did this separate? Am I okay? And how do I knit this back together?
Yeah. So again, the message is always don't just accept. Like, don't be
Mhm.
like, I guess this is how my abs are,
Correct.
and things
Yeah.
like that. And I've had friends throughout who've been like, what do I do about this? And I've been able to send them a few things, but I always do recommend like work with someone who deals with like a lot of
Mhm.
most postpartum women. I feel fairly comfortable like doing exercise pre and post, but
Yeah.
I do also like to refer to the pelvic floor people for any type of other issues going there or work in conjunction.
Right.
But yeah, even just for, I say regular folks, right, that
Yeah.
are trying to build a core or do whatever, I always want to get that like main base layer before I get what I call the pretty muscles.
The six pack. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody
The
wants a
rectus
six pack.
abdominis. But I
Mhm.
also say to people, if your body fat goes to a certain point, you may not even have a strong core, but
Uh,
when your body fat gets low, you see that six pack anyway. So it doesn't
mhm.
always mean that you're really buff. Sometimes you're just super thin and you can see it and it's not strong. So we
Right.
want to work on a strong core.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I was just trying to think if there was any other advice you had for women pre-pregnancy or post-pregnancy or even during pregnancy. Just things that you could think about, whether it doesn't even have to be exercise schedule or whatever from there.
Well, back thinking a little bit about exercise, a prenatal yoga class will help women have a community.
Oh yeah.
We are very scattered in this day and age, so it can be that you're here, Tracy and I are in the Phoenix area, you're here, and your mother or your sisters or your aunts are in another part of the country, and you have to create your community while you're here. So prenatal yoga is definitely one way to get that community. And then, especially if you work with someone who does pre and postnatal, because then you'll be meeting postnatal and you'll have your babies and you can bring your spouse. And it's just a nice way to be together with a group of people who've been through it is a very magical experience to give birth. So you're going through this time in your life that's only going to happen once, twice, maybe three times. Some people have a bunch of children, 13 kids or something, but most of us just do it a few times. So to have a group that goes through this with you and that you can call and they understand when you're like, oh my gosh, I've been up all night because they just did the same sort of thing. So definitely, excuse me, prenatal yoga can form a community for you. I think that's very important. We need a community to get through life. And other things I would think about, I try to look at not visualizing the birth because we already talked about the baby
The
has
baby has
their
its
own
own
thought.
vision. Yes.
Yeah, they've got their own thought about what they're going to
Mm.
do. But to visualize afterwards, you're happy, you're healthy, the baby's happy and healthy. Just to know what is my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to have a healthy baby. Some women would say my ultimate goal is to have a vaginal delivery. So we want to have that healthy baby and we don't want to have a vaginal delivery at any cost, in my opinion, unless that is your goal. So just to think of my ultimate goal is to take a healthy baby home. And I do say to women, when you are pregnant and or in labor, it's like you're on a roller coaster and you're at the top of that first hill and you think, I don't want to do this.
Okay.
Well, too bad. We're here. Like we're already here. We have to do it. The way out is definitely through when you're pregnant. So we're going to see what is this ride, and you're not in total control of it, I guess is my best way to say that.
Right.
Cesareans do save lives, cesarean births. I have three beautiful grandchildren who would not be here if it was not for cesarean births. So I love that. And we just have to, at some point, give over and let go and just say, okay, I'm going to enjoy this ride and I want this healthy child and what it takes to get them here. I do think it's important to communicate with your healthcare provider ahead of time because at the same time, we don't want someone to say, well, it's 5 o'clock, so you're going to have a cesarean. Like, no, we don't want that. We want to get the delivery we want to the best of the ability. Pregnancy, labor, and child rearing all takes patience. So,
And were you saying that you do want, I mean, again, I think for women, sometimes they feel like cesarean is a failure, right?
not
So
at
again,
all.
in an
No.
ideal world, obviously
Yeah.
you're able to push the baby out and do the things, but I do
Yeah.
like that you said, don't let someone push you. Like you have to have
Sure.
this, like, cesarean now, right?
Yeah.
But
So you do want to communicate that. Now, if
Mhm.
someone comes in and they're like, the baby's heart rate tracing does not look good, that's a different situation. But if it's just, it's 5 o'clock, it's quitting
Uh-huh.
time, that's, you don't
Uh-huh.
want that. So you just need to
Mhm.
communicate with someone and see. And I don't know if there's a way to look and see stats on an
Uh-huh.
OBGYN. I'm sure there is, but I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
So you do want to advocate for yourself,
Right.
but keeping in mind what is my ultimate goal?
Right.
What
And
is
a
my
happy,
ultimate goal
healthy.
here? Yeah,
You
happy,
know,
healthy mom and baby.
it's so I had a Father's Day. My dad, he's doing his memory
Yeah.
thing and whatever, and he was talking about stuff. And he basically just said, he goes, I was just watching, and he came out and he was like counting all the fingers and toes. And he goes, I was holding you. And he goes, I think you could hear me. You looked at me like you were
Yes,
listening.
yes. Oh, I'm so glad you said this. So when babies are born,
Uh-huh.
often so it depends. Like as a mom, you
Mhm.
can say, I want the baby delivered right up onto my chest. But some moms are like, I don't want the baby on my chest. Or
Mhm.
if you have a cesarean birth, you can't go onto the chest because they're doing
Stuff
surgery.
down there.
So we'll put the baby in the little,
Incubator.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then if dad comes over and the baby's crying, because that's what we want them to do that. It clears out their lungs. It's good. And when the dad comes over and talks, I would say to the dad, go ahead, like you can touch the baby and,
Mhm.
talk to the baby. And the
Mhm.
baby often will stop because they're like, I know that voice.
Right.
I know that voice. So they do know you didn't realize, oh, this is my dad. I've heard this voice before. It sounds different because
It's
they're
not
hearing
the
it
same.
through the water
Mhm.
first, through the amniotic fluid, but they
Mhm.
absolutely know mom and
Uh-huh.
dad. And I feel like we've gotten so much better if you have a cesarean birth that we bring the baby right up next to your face, even though you're laying there and you're still getting
Uh-huh.
fixed up.
Mhm.
And mom and dad and baby can have a little moment,
Right. With
even
that.
though it's in the OR, it's okay. That's
Mhm.
again, that's how that baby decided they were going to arrive here, and
Mhm.
they're here, they're healthy, they're happy. So let's have a little moment and celebrate it. And yeah, it's definitely not a failure. Not a failure.
Right. So I feel like for women, sometimes we have such an expectation
Mhm.
going in. So I like that. Don't expect all the things because the baby has a different plan, maybe,
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
my dad was like, you were independent from the start, And I was like, okay, thanks, dad. And I mean, I always tell the story. My poor mom, he got so excited. He like, when they were released, he took me and forgot my mom. you know, and he was at the car holding me and couldn't figure out how to drive. And he was like, now what do I do? And he's like, something's missing. And my mom's like, he got what he wanted and he left. I did all this work, so it's one of those things. But it's a funny story. I'm always like, ooh, but I think he was just, I'm going to say
Yeah.
excited, but.
That's so funny because now, of course,
Uh-huh.
when you're in the hospital, they're saying, show us your car seat. And do you know how to
Yeah.
install your car seat? Do you know how to put the baby in? But back in the day,
They
yeah,
were like,
you
good
just,
luck with your kid.
yeah, it was kind of just like, enjoy your life. There you
Yeah,
go.
that's how it was.
Yeah. So a friend of mine used to breastfeed while she was driving a car, which even when I was young, I was like, really? Like that seems a bit much. But yeah, people would just like take off with that baby.
And that's almost how it went down, But like, yeah, my dad's like, out we go. Yeah, and that was kind of like nobody worried whether they had a car
Yeah.
seat or they were
Oh yeah,
prepared
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
And it was
Yeah,
like,
it was. There was a lot of good luck, enjoy your life, and here we are. Here we
right.
are. Yes, we all
We
survived.
survived. I survived the car, the things, whatever. But
Yes.
yeah, so again, so now that there's more resources, it's totally fine to advocate. I like that we
Yes.
talked about patience. Patience is
Mhm.
something we don't have in a world of instant gratification, right?
Yes.
I find myself like, why did my internet not like instantly load, But like patience with yourself,
Yes.
patience with the baby, patience with the process, patience with returning to who you visioned that you were
Yeah.
going to be.
This is part of why I like yoga too, because I do say to people, yoga is a slow practice in a fast world. So yoga will get you where you want to go, but it may take literally decades. It's not like, I want to do the splits. And after 2 weeks of yoga, I can do the splits. Because we're in a culture where they're constantly saying, lose 50 pounds in 10 days. And it's like, okay, maybe you can lose 50 pounds in 10 days. Can you keep it off? Did you make a sustainable change? Did you instill habits that are going to be helpful to you? Yoga is very slow. So yoga can teach us, I need to slow down. I need to breathe. I need to stay patient. And parenting, you do need to be patient because children do very interesting things where you just feel like, oh my gosh. So
Mhm.
you want to be able to take a breath and be patient.
Right. And again, with yourself. So we live in a world where it is everything, every reel is this will
Yeah.
get you this in like this amount of time. And,
Mm.
even for core, like I'm telling patients,
Yes.
they're like,
Yeah.
sir, this core thing, why am I not better at it in 2 days? And I was like, it's been 2 days. Like I was all, Rome wasn't built in a day, calm down, but consistency, just add it because
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
so with pregnancy, pre and post.
It's about a year to get your core back is what
Yeah.
I believe. It takes quite a while. So,
Right.
and it took you 9 months to grow that baby. So,
Give your body some time.
yeah,
to
give your body
recover.
some time to recover from
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
So, but again, I appreciate you always sharing your knowledge, and
Yeah,
I keep
absolutely.
stopping to every time I have a topic. I'm like, Julie would be great for this. I'm going to call her. So thank you again, and also for all the tips and sharing your story.
Yeah. And just one more thing I wanted to say is that we're in a major metropolitan area, so we have a lot of resources here. And it is okay to reach out when you see a podcast like, hey, I live in Kansas or I'm somewhere rural.
Right.
And we don't know people in those areas, but our PTs may, like the
Yeah.
pelvic PT might be
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, Kansas. Okay, here's where you want to go. So it's still okay to work with these resources. It may or may not happen, but
Right.
certainly in the day of internet, it's a little easier to find and see, can I find someone who can help me with this situation?
Yeah. So again, fight for your health care. Look for the
Yeah.
things that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. At any age. At any
Yes.
age. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, even if you're many years post
Yes.
baby,
Yes.
and you're still
Yeah.
having issues or something's still going on, and you're like, I want to rebuild this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Reach out
It's
and
never too
let
late.
somebody help you with that for
Right.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
well, thank you again.
Yeah,
We're gonna
absolutely.
sign off. So,
Okay.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. As always, we hope that you found some nugget of information with all of the stories that these guests have to share. And always feel free to follow Better Fit Therapy online and on all of the social medias, Facebooks and Instagrams and all the fun things. Feel free to message at any point as well if you have a condition or you have a topic that you would like to explore. Feel free to send that in. Also, if you would like access to any of the resources or things from a different episode, please always feel free to send in a message and we can direct you. And again, thank you for taking the time, and don't forget to fight for your healthcare.